Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Alex, and today I'm going to be doing a review of Where the Axe is Buried by Ray Nayler. This is my second ever Ray Nayler novel. A few years ago, I read The Mountain and the Sea, which I love so much that I gave it 5 stars. It was a very glowing review. So I was extremely excited, but also anxious to pick up another Nayler novel because in my experience, whenever I really love one book from an author and it's the only book I've ever read from them, the very next book that I pick up is one that I don't like nearly as much. In order to try to mitigate that, when I picked up Where the Axe is Buried, I tempered my expectations, understanding that this novel, of course, was going to be different than The Mountain and the Sea. And so what I am going to seek to tell you all in this review is whether or not Ray Nayler was kind of a lightning in the bottle, just an amazing first read and maybe not so good second read, or if he's just consistently wonderful. Let's get into it. Where the Axe is Buried is set in the not too distant future where pretty much all European countries have an AI prime minister. So an AI is actually running their government for their country. The idea behind the AI prime minister is it is going to be an unbiased leader. It will not have any political leanings. It can't accept bribery. It won't be doing anything for its own personal benefit. It will use pure logic to determine the best course of action for all of the citizens of that country. You can kind of think of it like AI socialism, but they don't call it that. In this book, they call it rationalization. Everyone is treated equally and resources are split equitably. There is one government that is set apart from the rest, and that is referred to as the Federation. So the Federation is unique in that not only does it not have an AI prime minister, but it has had the same president for many, many, many generations of people. Because see, this president, every single time that his body fails, they just make him a new one. They give him a new identity, new hobbies, new background, and they just pretend that he's somebody else. But all of the citizens, everybody in the government, they all know that it's the same guy. They're just participating in this ruse. The Federation, for all intents and purposes, is the government from 1984, complete with a police state, surveillance in everybody's house. They can even determine how far of a radius you are allowed to travel from your home. This story is split up into a multitude of perspectives. Some people reading this might say that it's too many perspectives because there are a lot of people and ideas to keep track of, but the main thing I want you to focus on is that there are 3 really important people, and each one is a representative, if you will, of one of the 3 major governments. So you have the Republic, the Union, and the Federation. The most fascinating part of the idea of rationalization to me is how it immediately squashes any civil unrest in a country. Energy costs are too high, unemployment is through the roof, nobody can pay to feed themselves anymore. What do you typically get historically? You get a revolution. When the AI prime minister comes in and takes over the government, everybody immediately calms down. Everybody is operating on blind faith, that they just know based off of what they've seen from other countries that when the AI PM comes in for them, it's just going to make their country more habitable for everyone. Everyone's going to have a job. They're going to be able to afford food. You're going to have a house. You're going to have mandatory benefits, paid leave, a vacation. You have to take vacation. There's certain times of the year where you actually don't have a job, so you just are allowed to travel and go do whatever it is you want to do. And when you think about those benefits that are being provided, it sounds really nice. It sounds like it should be a utopia living under an AI. It's certainly better than the situation that they had previously, which is the reason why most people kind of become complacent. So you have all of these people in these different countries that are being run by an AI who no longer really have to think about anything because they don't have to worry about anything. One of the questions that this book seeks to answer that I personally find very poignant is, what do humans have to live for when they no longer have to struggle? Can you find fulfillment in a life where you don't have to try to fight for anything? I personally think this is a really important question because how many hundreds of millions of people across the world, maybe even billions of people, would love to wake up tomorrow and know that they have guaranteed benefits? Now, if you, dear viewer, are one of my sweet, sweet people from Canada or Europe, and you have universal health care or a state-sponsored pension plan, I'm very happy for you, but we don't have that here. In the US, we live in a marvelous hellscape where every single day I have to wake up and pray that I don't have some sort of terrible accident or go to the doctor and find out that I have a very rare and aggressive form of cancer where I need to have many forms of chemo treatment or radiation that could potentially make it to where I don't have a house anymore. Unfortunately, for the vast majority of people in the world, that is the truth that we live every single day. That is our reality. The reason I bring this up is because I feel like the US would be a perfect candidate at some point in the future for them promoting this idea of like, well, why don't we have an AI president? Why don't we just have an AI fix all of the problems of our country? And I feel like we would be extremely susceptible to that because we have so many people on the poverty line or who are really sick or who view the government in a very negative way. There are also countless people in Silicon Valley, people like Sam Altman, who would jizz their pants at the opportunity of making that happen. So unfortunately, I feel like that would be something that could potentially happen in the future of the United States. Between you, me, and that wall over there, we all know that it's true. That wall, you see that wall? That wall knows politics. There are multiple thought experiments that happen over the course of the book. That is the thing that I will say about Ray Nayler. His absolute strong suit is coming up with all of these theoretical ideas about philosophy and politics that a lot of people just don't spend enough time thinking about, and I really appreciate that about his writing style. Now I want to talk about the Federation, because the Federation is the exact opposite side of the spectrum. You have the AI that gives everybody personal freedom, and the Federation that takes it away on a whim. The Federation is that place where like you want to go to the bathroom in your own home and somebody in the government knows that you're in there needing to go number 2. And you would think, hearing that, the kind of revolution that we were talking about before, the Federation would be a perfect place for that to happen. Like just go in, replace this eternal, everlasting president with an AI prime minister, and everything should be good, right? But that doesn't happen. There has been a resistance for years, but the resistance has also been dying off. So this book seeks to answer the question of what causes a revolution to both rise and fall. What makes people give up hope that things could one day be different. If you've read 1984, the Federation is going to feel like home in a terrible new way. Ray Nayler is able to bring 1984 into the modern era in a way that George Orwell never would have been able to envision. I really enjoyed the sci-fi shenanigans and the inventions in this book. Ray Nayler has a great way of coming up with a lot of kind of like high concept ideas of things that could be created in the future, and he'll express to you what it is that they do, but he's vague about how it is that they actually work, which I think is a great way to introduce a new kind of technology. If you're someone who enjoys trying to piece a story together and you want to figure out what pieces fit and what pieces don't, I think you might really enjoy this novel. I always felt like there was a really strong air of mystery throughout the book, and it made things continue to move forward, and it never felt stale or stuck. There was actually so much that happened over the course of this book that when I got to the last 50 pages, I was racking my brain with how exactly Nayler was going to bring it all home, and I will not spoil for you whether or not he actually answers all of the questions in the book or not, but I will say that the way that the ending happened, I was satisfied with it, and therefore I would be able to say that I think he did a pretty good job. This is one of the very rare instances in which I would say that I would have actually liked for the book to be longer. Usually one of my biggest gripes with sci-fi books is that they meander, they ramble, or they don't get to the point enough. Nayler has a wonderful way of kind of getting to the heart of things. It was about 320 pages. I would have been very happy if there was another 75 to 100 pages of this story, which honestly is a pretty high compliment from me. One of the biggest gripes that I had with this novel is that you never truly get to know any of the characters, and I think the main reason is that there are just so many of them, and we're flitting between perspectives so frequently that each person is kind of a caricature. They're a medium, a vehicle, if you will, for the story to be able to progress forward. You know who they are and you know what they're doing, but their motivations might seem a little muddy, or they don't feel as deeply of people as I typically like in the books that I read. I love character-driven novels. Those are typically my favorite. Not every book has to be character-driven to be good though, so I want to make sure that I state that. Nayler is a very philosophical author. You can tell that he is a deep thinker. He's somebody that wants to share his thoughts and feelings with the world through these narratives that he creates. He has some amazing hard-hitting quotes. He's very thoughtful in the way that he expresses things. He can be preachy at times, which is actually a criticism that I gave in The Mountain and the Sea. The only thing for me is I tend to agree with what he has to say, so I don't really mind his preachiness so much. Other people may find it a little bit irritating. The Mountain and the Sea is a novel that explores the philosophy of sentience and sapience, and Where the Axe is Buried is very much a political philosophy about resistance. Now to the heart of the review, of course, which is, would I recommend this book? And I would say absolutely I would. I think that the topics in here are more relevant now than they ever have been and will continue to be. Is this a book that I would want to reread anytime soon? I would say not. I feel like I got a lot out of it just in my first reading. Maybe one day I would want to pick it up again, but it's not one that I'm immediately like, yes, I absolutely need to read that again. It's sometime in the next like 5 years. Thank you very much for taking the time to hang out with me during this review. I hope that you had a good time. Please let me know down in the comments if Where the Axe is Buried is a novel that you have already read or would be interested in picking up. I would love to hear your thoughts. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or evening, that you all stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time.